Hey everyone, this is Andrew Ty and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm very excited to tell you that RPCS3, the PlayStation 3 emulator, finally has an official macOS release. So if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I've been following the early development of the RPCS3 alpha on the Mac. And this was put together several months ago by a developer called Nas, and this has garnered the attention of the main RPCS3 team. And what they've done is they've put together a proper release of the macOS version of RPCS3, so it now sits on the main downloads page alongside the Windows and the Linux versions of the emulator. So today I'm going to show you how to get RPCS3 working on the macOS operating system. Some of the instructions are going to be updated and also simplified. I'm also going to be testing some PlayStation 3 games running on the Mac Studio with the M1 Ultra chip, which is Apple's fastest Apple Silicon chip at the moment. So now I'm going to show you how RPCS3 works on the Mac. So once we go to the rpcs3.net website, which I'll leave a link to in the description, we're going to go to the download section here, and then we're going to scroll down and we're going to find for the very first time that we have a full macOS release. So now we can go ahead and press the download button here. And this is going to go ahead and download the DMG file. So here we're going to press keep so that we can keep this DMG. It's not dangerous at all. Then we're going to go to Finder and then go to our downloads folder, and then we're going to open up RPCS3 here. So now we're going to drag and drop RPCS3 into the applications folder and then let go. And now that that's installed, we're going to go to the applications folder. Then we're going to find the RPCS3 icon, and then we're going to hold the control key, and then we're going to click on RPCS3 and then click the open button here, and then we're going to press open again. So now it's displaying a warning that this is not an official RPCS3 release. However, this is just a bug. This message should not be there as this is the official RPCS3 release, and we're going to be safe to use this. So here we're going to press yes, and now we have the RPCS3 menu open. So what we need to do now is to go ahead and download and install the PlayStation 3 firmware. So I'm going to leave a link to the official Sony PlayStation 3 system software update, which contains all of the firmware files. All we need to do is to go down here and press download PS3 update. So if you click on this and it's not actually working, what you can do is to hold down control and then click on this button. Then we're going to click copy link address. We're going to open a new tab and we're going to control click here. Then we're going to paste this address and press return. And then this is going to start downloading the PS3 update.pup. So this file is only 206 megabytes. So once that's downloaded, we're going to return back to RPCS3. We're going to click file here and then we're going to click install firmware. So here we're going to allow RPCS3 to access our downloads folder, and now we can select the PS3 update.pup and press open. So now that this has been successfully installed, we can press OK here, and this is going to configure the PPU modules. So now we're going to be free to go ahead and install some games. So I'm not going to explain how to download PlayStation 3 games. However, if you do a Google search for the game title and the letters ISO, then I'm sure you're going to be able to find lots of backups of those games on the internet. So in order to load up one of your backups, what you're going to do is press the open button here, and then we're going to navigate to your game folder. So here, for example, I'm going to load up Demon's Souls, and we're going to be selecting the folder itself. So the folder has the subfolder PS3_game and PS3_update. We want to select the parent folder here and press open. And then what's going to happen straight away is going to detect the rest of the games in the folder, and it's going to go ahead and start compiling PPU modules. So the setup of games is slightly simpler than it was before. What you can do is press the config button here, and then you can make some general changes to the emulator. In my previous video, I had a setup guide, and some of those steps are no longer required. They are baked into the default RPCS3 for Mac. When you're researching game compatibility, it's a really good idea to check out the RPCS3 wiki, which I'll leave a link to in the description. So if you scroll down, you're going to see some tips for getting these games working on RPCS3. Most of these tips are going to also work on the M1 Mac. So for example, here we can do things like turn on right color buffers, which is a very common fix, and also list some fixes and mods that may be required. So this config menu here is the general setting, which will apply to every game. However, one tip that I would say is that you should control click on a game and then create a custom configuration. And so any settings that you change here won't affect other games too. So this is going to let you apply some very specific fixes for those games without affecting other titles being run on RPCS3. The other thing is that you can control click on a game, and you can also click manage game patches. And if we update our patches and press OK, and we can remove this bar, we can also see what patches can be applied for what games. So for example, here with Demon's Souls, what I like to be able to do is to tick unlock FPS, which allows us to run at 60 frames per second instead of 30. And this is going to make the gameplay a lot more smooth. So the other thing to note is that the only controllers that are really supported are going to be DualShock 3, DualShock 4 and DualSense PlayStation controllers. And right now there's a bug where your Bluetooth controller disconnects wirelessly, then it's going to crash the entire emulator. So what I would advise you to do is to use a cable in order to connect to RPCS3 at the moment. This is going to give the most reliable performance because as soon as the controller goes to sleep, you're going to get a pad thread error. So anyway, I've tested a whole bunch of games on RPCS3 and we've got some really good examples of excellent performance. For example, Demon's Souls runs really well at 4K with all of the fixes applied. And also games like Tekken Tag Tournament 2 run excellently at 4K, running at 60 FPS as well. Some of the more mainstream titles are a little bit more disappointing. For example, Red Dead Redemption runs very slowly as this is a very challenging game to emulate. So anyway, there's a lot of development work that still needs to be done for RPCS3 on the macOS operating system. There's not going to be as good compatibility compared to say the Windows or Linux versions of RPCS3. However, what we have so far is still extremely impressive. So what we have to remember is that RPCS3 uses the Vulkan Graphics API, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done for this to be made compatible with the Metal Graphics API that Apple Macs use. Furthermore, RPCS3 is still an Intel x86 application, and in order for this to work on the M1 ARM chip, it needs to use the Rosetta 2 translation layer, which will hinder potential performance. So please make sure to stay tuned and subscribe because I'm going to be doing a Mac Studio M1 Ultra emulation video featuring plenty of PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, as well as other emulators working on the new Mac Studio. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.